Hey guys, we're back with the next steps to painting in our skeleton. What we want to do next is pretty much a lot of black work, and the reason we want to do this last is because if black gets mixed into your paint, it does what's called shading. It shades your color. So if you have black on your brush and you dip it in your yellow, you're going to make like this dark grayish yellow, and it's not all that appealing, especially if that's not a color that you really want. So I usually save my black for last. And what we're going to do, black on my brush, I want to start filling in the bulk areas that I know are black. Fill them in gently, take your time. If you find you have a wobbly line, use the very tip of your brush. The very, very tip of your brush is really pointed, and you can really get some straight, fine lines if you just don't bend the bristles. Just use that tip, that tiny little tip, to fill it in. Don't goop the paint on your paintbrush. If you put a ton of paint on your brush, you're going to have a big old blob, and it's not going to be a nice fine black line. It's going to be this big blob of black, and that's not the look you're going for. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it works out just great, but sometimes it leaves your painting looking very messy. So there's my nose. Another thing that is a very obvious black area are inside the circles of the eyes. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just redraw my circle. When I get to my petals, I'm going to lift a little bit because I don't want a big old flat line covering them. Come all the way around. Use your paintbrush like it's a pencil. Now take a look at that little area that I just finished. Right here, I have a touch of orange that is sticking out. You see that right there? It's sticking out. So what I need to do is enlarge my circle to cover it so it doesn't look obvious that I made an oops. So then I'm going to come back in, and now is where I'm going to really focus on my lines. I'm going to paint my petals. All those messy lines are poof, gone once I get that black on there. So you see what I mean? Whenever I said earlier that it's okay if you kind of go outside the lines on these petals, because the black covers it very well. If you find that your black is a little see-through, that just means it's got a lot of binder in it and it wasn't shaken well. You should always shake your paint before you use it because it does tend to settle, especially the older it is. So if you have a slightly grayish or see-through black, then put a second coat whenever it's dry. I'm going to come on around and I'm going to paint the whole thing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and finish both of the eyes, and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, so there we go. We have our eyes are finished. Well, they're not finished, but the black is in there. And now I want to do the eyebrows. I'm going to turn it over so I can reach it and not put my hands in wet paint. And what I like to do is nice long strokes. If you find your hand wiggles, steady it with your wrist. Hold your wrist. And if you really need a straight line, my secret is to hold your breath. Because when you breathe, you tend to move up and down with your breath, right? Take a deep breath in, you move. When you take a deep breath out, you move. So In order to keep your brush strokes nice and lined up and straight, hold your breath. Okay. So there we have the chunky parts of our skeleton. But now we want to add some fine details. First of all, I want to outline everything. So I'm going to go through and using the very tip of my brush, I'm going to start adding my swirls. Remember, the tip, not the full bristle. Because if you use the full bristle, you're going to have big old fat chunky swirls. If you're not comfortable hand painting your swirls, guess what you can do? You can use a Sharpie or a permanent marker. It works. Trust me. I do it all the time. It's kind of cheating, but you know what? Sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes the lines are too fine. And sometimes I haven't had enough sugar in my diet and I'm shaky, or sometimes I've had too much caffeine and I'm shaky. So you want to make sure that when you do your art, you use whatever methods necessary to make it look the way you want it to look. You'll notice that I'm constantly turning my canvas. That is very important because then you don't spread your paint where you don't want it. All right, you guys, I'm going to continue outlining my whole picture. I'm not going to add any other details. I'm just going to outline everything except for these tiny little chuts, I guess you could say, for lack of better words. I'm going to outline my petals of my flowers. I'm going to outline my leaves. I'm going to outline everything. But I'm not going to add any fine details, so don't worry. When we come back, I'll show you how to do the next part. All right, you guys, so I'm back. I have outlined everything in black. I have not added any fine details except, I guess you could say, the centers of my leaves. I added the lines there, but I have not done anything to my flowers up here. I have not added the center of my teeth or anything. So let's go ahead and come up to the little flowers at the top. And my painting is still wet, so I don't want to drag my hand through it, so I'm going to spin it. Remember how we did a swirl with the pink and the white? We're going to do that with the black. Just a little bit. Just a swirl. We want to make it look like these are kind of some little whimsy flowers. I guess they could be almost like a little poppy. I don't know. I'm not big into the flower thing. I love to paint them, but I don't know what to call them. Just to add something in them. Okay. So now I'm going to spin it around and I want to give it a center line for my teeth. So my line is going to actually come from my flower. I have a smile line that goes all the way around, nice and thin, all the way through my teeth, up and around. I didn't fill it very well, so I'm going to come back and redo where it kind of got a little hazy. There we go. And I want to outline this little center heart. All right. I think the remainder of this we can do with a fine point Sharpie or permanent marker. So I'm going to pull this out. Now remember, when you use a permanent marker, do not put it in the wet paint. Bad, bad, bad. That's not a good thing to do because it'll ruin your Sharpie. So now's our time to add our swirls wherever we want some. But remember, they are typically the same on both sides. So I have a swirl there. I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to estimate about where my swirl would be over here. Let's see if I do this right. Hopefully I do. Yay, I did. Sometimes I end up going the opposite and making it upside down. All right. So I think I'm going to add one more swirl over here. Can't see it on the other one. That's okay. And maybe I'll add just some lines, some swirls. This is where you start to doodle. And just go with it. All right, we can't see it on that side, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to add a swirl coming off of this on both sides. You can't see that one. And you know what, it's not on the sample, but I really feel like we need a little bit of swirling over here. And maybe even some over here. All right, I like the way that looks. So I'm going to pick up my Sharpie. I'm going to get my paintbrush back out, but I'm not going to use the bristle part of it. I'm going to actually use the back. The back is an excellent way of getting perfect little dots. So I'm going to dip it in my paint, and I'm going to start polka dotting. See that? Now notice the first dot is nice and thick, and as I go, gets thinner and thinner because the more dots you add, the more paint is being used. And you can do this with every color or any color. I'm going to use black for this one, and in a little bit I will be introducing some white as well. I love doing these dots. I feel like they kind of complete it. I'm adding some up here. Up top. And now I want to add some to my flowers, just a couple of the flowers, because some of the other flowers I'm going to use white. Couple up high, and let's do a few little dots on our leaf there, and maybe this leaf here. And I'm going to wipe it off. I want it nice and clean. See that? Nice and clean. Because now we're going to switch to white. And we're going to add some white dots. Anywhere you want to put them. I'm going to spin it. Oops, I almost dipped in my green. I'm going to polka dot my nose all the way around. There you go. Do all of my petals in the eyes. And do it on the other side as well. And finally, I'm going to do a few on the other flowers that I did not do. And there you have it. I love sugar skulls. Absolutely love sugar skulls. And I love to just get lost in the design. Feel free to lose yourself in creating this. Add swirls, add polka dots. The sample has swirls coming up out of the flowers. Use your Sharpie and add some swirls. Add fine details that you can't see from far away, but you can definitely see them close up. Do whatever you want to make this your own. But what you definitely want to do is sign your art. Every artist signs their artwork. I want to thank you for joining me for this Sugar Skull lesson. It was a long lesson, and I apologize for it being so long, but in all actuality, it's totally worth it, don't you think? All right, you guys, thank you for joining me for this lesson. I look forward to our next lesson where we're going to do a Sugar Skull cat, which I'm really excited about. All right, you guys, have a good day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.